F sharp, A sharp, revisited.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to F Sharp A Sharp Revisited, the music review podcast where we take a look at what's going on in music and let you know what we think. I am Joe, the music critic, reasonable person, and with me from the division of Joy is Nick. And
Hello.
together we're going to talk about the new Fall Out Boy release.
Division of Joy, my arse.
Okay. New Fall Out Boy album.
Can I make a prediction?
Go on.
I'm going to predict that you're going to think this album is bad, but kind of like it anyway.
Yeah. Was it really that obvious?
I know you too well, Joe.
You know me
I know
too
you
well.
too well.
So Fall Out Boy.
Yeah. Illinois four-piece band. They've been going nearly 20 years, if you can believe that.
When did they start? Was it
2003, I think their first
Something.
album was.
Yeah, started off from a more punk direction, quickly into pop punk, into more poppy land.
And now EDM, it would appear.
Yeah, a very weird mix of rock and EDM
Yeah.
on certain tracks.
So you got this new album, Mania, which is 10 tracks, 36 minutes long, and you know the main two members that anyone's heard of. You got Patrick Stump, the singer,
Yeah.
and main compositionalist.
Yeah, but
And Pete Wentz, and no bass lyrics. Whatever.
bass and lyrics. Yeah,
Can I say my positive point on this album first?
Go on.
I've always liked Patrick Stump's vocals. He's got, I mean, he's great with the vocal melodies, and he can hit every single note, quite a wide range, and you know, he's fun.
yeah. It's just because he is very daring with his vocal melodies. He can hit all kinds of ranges at any time he wants to, and he has the strength of voice to carry it off. So it just works well for him in the band.
Like at the end of the chorus to Wilson, Expensive Mistakes, that note he hits when he says the word colour, it's really high and really sort of operatic in a way.
It's operatic, it's very exact and precise as
Yeah.
well, but he does have some emotional weight with his voice as well. Not all the time on this album, but he carries it as well. I think he's a good vocalist as well.
But yeah, that's the one thing I can say positively about this album that was good. So I expected this album to be bad, and I was still let down.
To be honest, I like this more than their last album, if I'm going to be honest. American Beauty, American Psycho, which did pretty much nothing for me. This album is, I suppose you could say, objectively bad, but there were still tracks that I thought had a bit of charm to them that I can't help but like and be drawn to. I've definitely enjoyed re-listening to this album than other bad albums this year.
No, I didn't. I wish I could say the same. And with songs like Wilson, Expensive Mistakes, which I'm just going to call Expensive Mistakes from now on,
Yeah.
the chorus, you know, it's catchy, and I found myself singing along to it a few times. But that's kind of made me hate myself, so I can't give the album kudos for that. Besides Expensive Mistakes being probably the highlight on this album for me, I don't think there's a single other song on this album I'd recommend.
There is one song that I unashamedly do like, and that's Church.
No, that's my least favourite, because legitimately it gives me a headache to listen to. It as soon as the backing choir comes in, I actually feel a sort of pain in my ears. I absolutely loathe that section, and I've found myself skipping the song on multiple occasions.
See, I love the backing choir. I just like how unashamedly dramatic it is.
It's because the mixing on not just that song, the entire damn album is absolutely horrendous. That it's everything grates. It sounds like everything is trying to be louder than every single other thing. It's really hollow and overproduced, basically.
I would say I agree with you broadly on that point, but I do think on Church it does work for the drama of the piece. I guess that's just going to be a point of disagreement,
Yeah,
but
I
you
imagine
saying
so.
it's a bit of a loud, bombastic album does ring true. Two of my least favourite songs of the album come quite early on. Sorry, you're
if
gonna.
they come quite early on, that means Young and Menace isn't one of your least favourite songs.
It isn't. See, I hated that song when I first heard it. I hated it, but on fourth listen...
Fourth listen. Okay, to be fair, on first listen I hated it, and then on second, third, fourth, fifth listen I hated it as well, and I haven't gone back to it since.
I think that's fair because I don't... you can't really pinpoint anything about the song that's really that good, but I just don't mind it.
It's another song on the album that I find painful to listen to, honestly. The weird chipmunk vocals, and I don't like. You know how I said previously, oh, this album was supposed to come out last year, and now they're releasing it now, which I don't think is a good sign. How was this one of the songs that survived from the previous iteration of the album? I don't know. It's just bad. It's
bad. I like. And
it's a mash of every bad idea possible.
Yeah, and Britney Spears.
Yeah.
Oops, I did it again.
Yeah,
I'm not going to sit here and defend the song because I think to do so would be a pointless exercise because it is bad. I just didn't mind it. My two least favourite...
Stay Frosty Royal... What's it called?
Yeah.
Stay Frosty Royal Milk Tea.
I did not... It was that and Champion did my head in. I couldn't stand those two tracks at all. So, Stay Frosty Royal Milk Tea. Okay, as much as I love distorted bass, it was completely boring on this track. It wasn't mixed well at all. It wasn't mixed in a way that made it, an exciting bass to the piece. And then the guitar licks were dull as hell.
Yeah, if you get past how overblown the mixing and mastering is, it's just incredibly dull. There's no nuance in it. There's very little substance.
And you know what? That kind of made me think maybe moving away from, the pop punk direction is probably a good thing, because the tracks like this where they are focusing more on guitars, I thought were the worst tracks just from how uninventive they were. I mean, some of the other tracks were annoying as hell with the EDM influence, but at least they were doing something different and maybe sometimes interesting. But on those two tracks, I was so brain dead. And the choruses to those two tracks are terrible as well. The only thing that's ever stopping me is me. Hey.
Yeah.
Odor resistance.
Inspiring. Oh, yeah. Are you smelling that shit? Odor resistance.
It's so bad. Oh, and then I didn't like Champion as well. The chorus was literally, if I can live through this times 3, I can do anything. And, I remember at the time when Fall Out Boy did... I mean, sometimes they were cringeworthy, but, at least inventive lyricism that actually... you could say meant something.
Yeah,
but here...
the lyricism on this just comes across as really smug and actually kind of hideous.
Yeah.
Even on the song Church with the chorus, it's got this very, cliched chorus. If you were church, woo, I'd get on my knees. Yeah, confess my love, I'd know where to be. My sanctuary, you're holy to me. I mean, it's both simultaneously pretty cliched, and I got this sort of weird, sort of sexually repugnant vibe from it, with the placements of the woo and the yeah.
And they're being on the knees.
Yeah. No, it on top of the really painful choir, that song is just, I hate it. I hate it. I'd like to point out another section of lyrics, which is the chorus to Wilson, Expensive Mistakes, which I've got to say it's my favourite song on the album, but I think favourite's quite a strong word for this. The chorus is, I hope the roof flies off and I get blown out into space. I always make such expensive mistakes. I know it's just a number, but you're the eighth wonder. I'll stop wearing black when they make a darker colour.
It makes no sense.
It makes no sense. And also, that chorus... it references two different things, like the line, I hope the roof flies off and I get blown into space, references Moonrise Kingdom, which is my favourite film of all time. It also references with I'll stop wearing black when they make a darker colour, references the Addams Family. And I'm just thinking, why?
It makes no sense.
It makes no sense to reference these things here and put them together.
Yeah, it's very weird. When you said weird lyrics, there is one that I want to highlight from Hold Me Tight or Don't. And I was racking my brains trying to figure out if I actually liked it or not, whether I thought it was good or awful. So you're probably going to tell me it's awful, but I'll read it out anyway. And when your stitch comes loose, I want to sleep on every piece of fuzz and stuffing that comes out of you.
Ugh.
I know.
No, that just makes me feel uncomfortable.
It makes me feel uncomfortable, but it makes me think, maybe that's the point. I mean,
I don't think anything on this album's deliberate.
The imagery kind of works. Okay,
I guess.
Let's move on.
More power to you. Let's move on to the fact that, there are a lot of ideas on this album, but then you realise that, one, they're all stretched incredibly thin, and two, the majority of them are just... cliches taken from other genres of music. They're sort of vaguely trying to go into the the hit Latin section in Hold Me Tight and Heaven's Gate sounding like a 90s song trying to copy a 50s song,
I
but
did
released
not.
in the 2010s.
See, Heaven's Gate was another one I didn't like because going back to when we said I thought Stump's vocal performance was pretty good. I didn't like it on this song. In the verses, it sounded like he was trying to be a cross between Jeff Buckley and Mariah Carey, and it was not working.
Yeah.
It was not working at all. That's my thoughts
most
on
of
it.
this album just feels like it's very lazily written to me.
I
And
think,
the bits which are more adventurous, I just don't think work.
I think broadly speaking, I agree. I think the biggest letdown for me was the lyrics because the lyrics were the main point of why I liked early Fall Out Boy so much. Infinity on High, especially around that era, they were actually writing some pretty interesting stuff from a lyrical standpoint. But here, there's so much cliches.
They've written some of my favourite endearing choruses.
Yeah,
I think it's safe to say, like on
Sugar We're Going Down.
Sugar We're Going Down
Yeah.
is love, and Dead on Arrival's got the chorus, which is something like, "This is side one, turn me over. I know I'm not your favourite record, but the songs you go to like never stick at first,"
Yeah,
which I think is lovely.
yeah.
This is, church on my knees, sexually repugnant. Been there. Let's not talk
Let's
about
not
it
return
anymore.
to that. Do I have anything else to say about the album?
I think overall, it's actually a pretty forgettable listen, apart from the standout bits, which I don't think I've said good things about for the most part.
You've basically said Wilson was catchy.
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
was it. I mean, I did like Wilson. I mean, the lyrics make no sense. It's fun to sing along mindlessly too, though. And this is just the one we disagree on. I liked Church. Young and Menace didn't bother me. The last track was decent, but nothing special. I mean, I still think there is part of me that kind of likes the effort that they made on some of the tracks, but this album is Bad Decisions. The album, really. If I'm gonna be completely honest, I still don't think it's the worst thing I've listened to this year. But
If I knew how much it cost for them to produce this album, I would make an expensive mistakes joke, but unfortunately I don't.
yeah,
With how overproduced it is, I think it probably cost a fair amount to make this album.
Probably, and
especially because they had to
yeah.
restart as well. So
an extra 6 months. So
yeah.
oh, yeah. So as a kind of, I'd call myself a bit of a semi Fall Out Boy fan. I would say I'm disappointed, but
What can you do?
I wasn't expecting much after the last album, if I'm going to be completely honest. But
I was stuck for a little while on what sort of rating I'd give this album, because I mean I managed to get all the way through the album, which is more than
Yeah.
can be said for certain other ones I listened to last year. But at the same time, I've said before, I won't give anything less than a 3 unless I find something about it offensive. And I just thought the fact that songs like Church and Young and Menace I actually found painful to listen to makes it qualify, so I'm going to give it a 2 out of 10.
okay, I'm going to give it like a strong 3 to a 4. Personally, that's probably the difference between you hating Church and me liking it. But yeah, I think I'm
happy that I never have to listen to this album again. Though I do think I will probably end up singing Expensive Mistakes without meaning to at certain points in the future.
Definitely. I just don't know whether I should expect more from the band now. I kind of feel like maybe their youthful shine has gone away. Yeah.
I don't think it's ever coming back.
Probably not. Like, they might kick their asses in gear. It happens to some bands.
Maybe, but they did say when they, back in, I think it was July, when they were previously meant to release Mania, they said, we came together and we just sort of realised it doesn't really sound like a Fall Out Boy album. Does this?
No. No. I mean, if they come out with a good record next time, then they'll come back in my favour. For now, I think we should move on. I think we've said everything we want to say.
Well, we've had a request for the next band that we are going to talk about by Adam. So he said, is Dream Wife their self-titled debut on your radar? Because it should be. So we're going to talk about that for a bit now. And as far as I understand, they're not particularly well known at the moment, though they've been getting a bit of sort of breakout success, good reviews, the like.
Yeah.
So they are a 3-piece punk pop band from the UK featuring 3 women. This is their debut album, self-titled. It's 11 songs, 35 minutes long. I didn't really connect to this album, and
Okay.
I didn't know what you would think of it because,
It's a punk album,
yeah,
so I see. I was hoping. Well, you have more of a taste for punk than I am, so your opinion probably weighs a little bit more than I do. But I found okay. One thing I liked about the album, I say, is I thought quite a lot of the guitar riffs were quite nice. I thought, and then I didn't really like much of the rest of the features of the album, if I'm gonna be
yeah.
honest.
I mean, it sounds like they want to carry the spirit of 90s garage pop and the sort of Riot Girl era, but they just sort of end up sounding like they sort of provide a hollow pastiche of those. And the guitar riffs that you said you quite liked, to me, they just sounded like they were lifted from the efforts of previous bands. Like Hey Heartbreaker and Let's Make Out sound exactly like things that bands like the Muffs
Yeah.
would have done. And actually, ironically, for this band, I think they actually sound best when they're sort of edging towards pop rather than punk.
I would say so because both my favorite and least favorite song on the album was Love Without Reason.
Okay, that was my least favorite, but I'll let you explain why it's your
I,
favorite.
I really liked the guitar riff on that one. I had a lovely mellow feel, but then it was just the same two sections over and over again.
Yeah,
And
no,
it
no, I mean, I just found it to be such damn lazy songwriting. I couldn't look past it to see for how good the guitar riffs were because, like you said, it's the same repeated. The
yeah,
same the lyrics. There's not even any variation in the lyrics within the verses themselves. It's just, I
it's just
feel like I love you without reason.
and
Repeat ad infinitum. It's
and then Let's Be Kids in Love or
yeah.
something like that. Yeah, and
Oh, does
Fall in
that
Love.
and that reminded me of Kygo. So,
Ugh, yeah.
ugh.
Ugh. So yeah, not a great choice there. And then, but yeah, some of the choruses as well I thought were a little bit underwhelming. Well, I've got one in mind, and that's from Somebody. Just because I felt like it was sung very
Yeah.
weirdly. It was like, I am not my buddy, I'm somebody.
See,
And
I agree with you. I didn't really like how it was sung, but I did like the sentiment of that chorus. I thought it was a pretty good take on female empowerment, I guess.
I mean, yeah, but
I'm more than
I'm
an
not
object, I guess.
I'm not sure it's really portrayed all that well, I suppose, in this song. But
To be fair, it's the only bit of the album where I thought the lyrics were anything special.
oh, can I talk about the lyrics to the one song, Kids? Because I'm just going to read them out, actually. We stood outside the bank you once robbed, hoping that someone would recognize you. And then we stood outside for hours and hours, but nobody could recognize you. And then we took off our shoes, and we took off our clothes, and we jumped into the lake. Like, that's just shit that never happened, land. That's so try hard.
Yeah.
It's,
It's quite funny because the two songs you've just mentioned as being ones you weren't fond of were the ones I've actually put as being my favourites on the album.
Okay.
And I think it's because I just gave up on the lyrics and just tried to listen to the compositions
Right,
instead. Because I
okay.
think Kids has probably got my favourite composition on the album. Coming straight after Love Without Reason, that possibly helps because I
yeah,
hated
it was
that song.
so
But
repetitive.
it's got a really fun, nice guitar riff with some nice
Hmm.
dissonant twists in it, and I think the vocal rhythm and delivery are actually pretty fun, and the chorus is kind of danceable.
Yeah, I'd
It's
agree,
it's
but
not a song that
yeah,
I think is like a masterpiece of anything, but
it's fun enough. But
it's fun
it's
enough.
just those lyrics because when it sounds so try hard, I feel like the spirit of punk, like I know anything about that, but I kind of feel like the spirit of punk needs to have that genuineness to it, and because those lyrics were so try hard, it I don't know, it just really lost me.
Yeah. Can I talk about my other least favourite track?
Go on.
Guess what it is?
Um, Act My Age.
No, it's FUU.
Oh yeah, that was another. I'll tell you what though. Look at my notes. Not that the listeners can see, but towards the end of the album,
Yeah,
Not-
they get fewer and fewer, and
yeah. So some of literally the last four tracks, I was like, boring, boring, boring. I've had enough by now.
FUU is just embarrassing.
Yeah.
Honestly, it's hard to listen to because it's so impossible to take them seriously. It doesn't it doesn't strike me that there's any element of like irony or the like on
Or
the
even
song.
any real aggression on there
And
either.
the sort of perhaps interesting guitar lines, the aggressive guitar riffs on it, are completely lost to just how dumb the lyrics are.
What were the lyrics to that track?
I'm going to fuck you up, I'm going to cut you up, I'm going to fuck you up, and then I'm going to fuck you up, and then I'm going to cut you up, and then I'm going to fuck you up.
Oh yeah, I remember now. Yeah. Yeah, shit, that never happened land again, so...
It's just impossible to... I mean, punk is built on aggression, I guess, in a way. Dissatisfaction with things.
Yeah.
Rejecting the status quo. This just feels like aggression for the sake of it rather than because it's being channeled anywhere.
I would say aggression as a stylistic choice, and it becomes rather obvious that it's a stylistic choice. So, not that that's always a bad thing, but I just think with punk, again, you need that genuine spirit about it for it to really have that catharsis.
Yeah. And the last point I want to make, which I think sort of ties into your last 4 songs being really tiring. The album's only 35 minutes long and it still feels too long to me. I think it could have been a few tracks shorter and it would have been more concise.
Perhaps. I mean, I wouldn't mind, to be honest, I didn't mind listening to it all the way throughout, but I don't know.
It's not the worst thing I've ever heard as an album, but I did think, and this is a recommendation to all the listeners, go and listen to Hop Along, because they have a similar sound and they're just much more interesting as a band.
I do have one other track that I thought was alright, which was the opening track, Let's Make Out. So just listen to that song if you want. Yeah. Like, maybe this will be right up some people's alley, so
yeah,
listen to that if you want to taste for it.
Some people really like this. I saw it got a 5-star review from NME.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Well, then again, they had Eminem on their hottest new releases page, so...
Yeah, I stopped caring about NME a while ago. The only reason I saw it is because I was just trying to find information about the band and it came up. But, like 4 from me.
I don't know, I seem to be feeling more generous than you this podcast, but for me this is difficult because I'm not a punk aficionado or anything like that, but I didn't find it too offensive to listen to, just a bit dumb at points really. So strong 4, light 5, that kind of area.
No, maybe I'd give it a decent 4. I don't know how nice or mean I'm being. It didn't gel with me.
It didn't gel with me. I do think there are things about this that people could like, so I don't want to put people off entirely if it sounds like the kind of thing they might like.
Well, that was not a good start to the podcast. We've had 2 albums which we've just sort of been a bit...
Yeah, I promise I'm a music critic reasonable person and not a super villain.
Well, at the time that we were trying to decide what albums to talk about that came out over the last 2 weeks, we just sort of looked at the list and went...
And we went, oh no, Craig David, no. Yeah. Anything but that.
There just weren't that many albums like either of us particularly cared about.
Yeah.
Like, I kind of wanted to listen to They Might Be Giants, but they haven't really made a good album since the early 90s, so...
Yeah, I had a few that I kind of felt like I might have wanted to do, but either thought like we couldn't get much discussion out of them, or just weren't that really interesting. Or interesting or good.
It's the return of classics.
Classic reviews. We're going to talk about some good records.
Yeah, we're going to talk about Joe's favourite band.
My favourite. Yeah, they probably are my favourite band. Yeah, Radiohead, who we have argued about incessantly. So
we're going to talk about In Rainbows, right, and how it's not that great. We're going to talk about the Bends.
The Bends,
and this is a great one because I hadn't actually listened to the Bends before.
Oh, shame on you, Nick.
Absolutely shame on me. So,
okay.
Do we need to give Radiohead an introduction?
Okay, if you don't know who Radiohead are, stop living under a rock.
Yeah, Joe doesn't want you listening to our podcast if you don't know who Radiohead are.
Radiohead, legendary alternative rock band, went slightly doolally with electronic stuff and all kinds of experimental art rock type stuff afterwards. That's their deal, and we're going to be talking about The Bends, which was released in 1995.
Their sophomore album.
It was the album that proved that, well, at least my opinion, proved that Creep wasn't a one-hit wonder, and that they actually had a knack for some just incredibly tight alternative rock songwriting. They could write just like a fantastic 4-minute rock song.
So
I
to
can
me,
feel it in my chest that I'm getting butterflies again.
so to me, and I just like to state now, I haven't actually listened to Pablo Honey either, but this strikes me as probably a better Pablo Honey. Am I right?
Yes and no. Like this is because if you could say that Pablo Honey was quite a grungy record, this is more them taking on a lot more sophisticated elements. There's a lot more acoustic elements that weren't really in Pablo Honey. There are a lot more
Yeah, I think
synths and keyboards. There's just a greater variety in sounds in the bends.
all of the tracks on here have compositions that go just that little bit further than they need to, and
Yeah,
it really comes through. There's
yeah.
a lot of subtlety to the tracks, or little bits that come in that you think, oh, that's
It's
nice.
just a nice touch,
Yeah,
isn't it?
and I like this album quite a lot actually. I think for its time it was actually, I guess, kind of experimental with the way that it did the sort of
Yeah.
grungy tracks, and it's very clear how influential it's
Oh yeah, I
become.
think I've probably seen more artists cite this album as an influence from Radiohead than any other Radiohead album, just from interviews I've seen. And you can kind of see it just the way that they experimented. I mean, it's not like heavy experimentation, but seeing new ways they could make the guitars interact with each other amongst other instruments was just a real,
And it's helped me fill
yeah.
in that sort of missing link in the evolution of Radiohead, because I didn't really see how they'd go from Pablo Honey songs to OK Computer, because I hadn't listened to the Bends, but listening to it, it fills the
Yeah,
gap
you
nicely.
can see it. You can see the
And I
development.
saw a great quote. I can't remember who it's from. I think it's from one of the members of the band, who said that the Bends is a bit like Star Wars in that it's not, particularly plot heavy, but it's flashy and it's fun and it gets a lot of people excited. And then you've got OK Computer, which is like The Empire Strikes Back, which has got a lot of better qualities to it, and it's more experimental and perhaps a little less likely to please the average folk, but ultimately more rewarding, which I think is quite apt.
Yeah, yeah, I'd say so. Yeah.
But no, this album I think is pretty great. There's a lot to like on it. I'll get my shortcomings of the album out the way first, which is
Okay.
that I think that it needed to be a little bit more succinct. I think that the three tracks leading up to the closer, Street Spirit, just aren't quite as strong.
Okay, I would agree with you on Black Star and Sulk, but Bulletproof I wish I was.
Yeah, that's my
I
that's my least favorite.
No, Nick, no. It's not quite in my top three
I don't
on this
think
album, but I just love that song. I love the way that York channels Buckley in that song. I'm just like, yes.
I don't think it's
yes.
I don't think it's a bad song, but as far as the songs on the album go, that's probably the one I have least to say about.
Okay, well, I have one least favorite song which I'll get out of the way, and that's Bones, which comes quite early on in the album. Doesn't do a lot for me, but I like pretty much every other track on this album.
I thought Bones was fine. Not great, not the best, but not bad.
Okay, where should we
Well,
start going into?
I think I'm gonna say my favourite tracks. Actually, you're gonna guess my favourite tracks
Oh, am I? Okay.
because I put them down and thought this doesn't seem right.
Okay. I mean, I just from your what do I know about your taste and what you would say? Because I think one of your favorite tracks will be one of my favorite tracks, which is actually one of my favorite songs of all time and one of my favorite Radiohead tracks, and that's Fake Plastic Trees.
Wrong.
No,
Though that is a great track.
I love. Okay,
Because the first time I listened through, I kind of expected to put it down as one of my favourites, and then on subsequent listens, it just sort of fell behind some of the others.
okay, okay.
I'd probably put that like fourth.
Okay, we'll have a fist fight later. How about Nice Dream?
Yes.
I do love that track.
Yeah, Nice Dream is absolutely, it's gorgeous. It's
so
honestly
gorgeous.
gorgeous. The vocal melody and the sort of great use of the thick texture, yet never like overwhelming
yeah.
instrumentation. It all meshes wonderfully. And then there's that sinister guitar solo that comes in that's sort of jarring, but not completely enough to take you out of the rest of the song.
It's
think-
almost like like a nightmare within a dream.
Yeah.
Is how I always thought of that section.
It's a wonderful track. I think it's probably my favourite on the album.
The chords on it are absolutely lovely. I did learn to play them at one point, and they're just so lovely. And the way the strings layer on top of them,
The harmonisation between the instruments is perfect.
it is perfect, literally
So
perfect.
definitely my favourite track on the album. Can you guess my second favourite?
Oh, just.
No,
That's another one of my favourites, but
that's
okay.
probably like fifth.
Well, we'll go into my favourite tracks in a bit. So
Planet Telex.
I do like that one a
Yeah.
lot. I do like that one a lot. It's also quite a bit different from the rest of the tracks on the album, I thought, because you've got that very watery, echoey keyboard layered on the guitar, which is essentially doing the same
I
pattern.
love the tremolo effect that they put on
Yeah,
the keys. It's great. And then the subversion of your expectations as it goes from the intro into the first verse. Ew.
yeah,
It gives me tingles thinking about it. It's really satisfying. It's brilliant, and the drum beat in it is so brilliantly punchy.
yeah. And there's a bit kind of as it layers up towards the end where you've got like all the instruments filling in different voicings as well, some going higher up, lower down, and it kind of sounds simple to say, but it just comes to this wall of sound which is so nice and satisfying. It's
Yeah.
rich. It's not too dense. It's rich to listen to, and oh, I love it.
For the record, if I had to put third favourite song, it would actually be the title track, The Bends.
Yeah, that's one of my top. My top three are just Fake Plastic Trees and The Bends, all of which would rank among my favourite Radiohead songs easily. So let's talk a bit about The Bends. I mean, I love The Bends so much. It has this kind of cyclical flow to it. It's like this constant stream of momentum through these different sections, which works so well. The lyrics are just brilliant. I love the lyrics
Yeah.
to this track. Let me read some out. I
I
need to.
think I didn't write down any lyrics because I knew that you would be the one who would be able to read them out.
I have for some of the songs, but not others. But the bends, I need to wash myself again to hide all the dirt and pain because I'd be scared that there's nothing underneath. And then just lying in a bar with a drip feed on, talking to my girlfriend, waiting for something to happen. I wish it was the 60s. I wish we could be happy. I wish that something would happen. Where do we go from here? The planet is a gunboat in a sea of fear, and where are you? And then it all works up into this brilliant climax. I'm not going to try singing it now because. And he just shouts.
Just listen to any of the covers that Joe has done on this podcast to hear his Tom York impression.
Pretty much. It's just when he sings "My Baby's Got the Bends" the second time, and not having any real friends. It's just like yes. That's all I can think of when I hear that track. So, like of all the rockers on the song, the Bends and Just are my two favourites. Just, I honestly believe it's the best chorus ever written. It's so fun to sing at people displaying self-destructive behaviour.
Yes, it's a
You
fantastic
do
chorus.
it to yourself, you do. And that's what really hurts. And I love the chords in that song
Yeah,
as well.
they're amazing.
I think they made them to try and see how many different.
That song is probably what Muse listened to and decided they were going to be.
Yeah, I think
Muse.
the streaming like whole tone, half tone scale. The riff at the start of the song. Is that a bit too technical?
Here he comes with his music A level.
It works so nicely, and the chord supports it so well while sounding consonant at the same time. And there are a lot of unrelated chords, like the C to the F sharp in the chorus. That just it sounds dissonant, but it works so well. And York's melodies just fit around them so perfectly. It's a compositional masterpiece.
Yeah.
I think so anyway. And I love listening to it every single time, especially in some of the more instrumental sections. You've got just Greenwood going so high on that guitar towards the end as the rest of the instruments fill in around it, and you've just got that lovely climax at the end.
And I would say for the entire album that the production on it, the mixing of the instruments, everything just fits.
Yeah,
Everything works.
everything works. Everything's as loud as it should be, really. So, yeah, it works.
I am going to give a controversial opinion and say I like this album more than In Rainbows.
To be honest, that's not all that controversial. I wouldn't say so. A lot of people really highly rate this album. Like, I would only put In Rainbows just above The Bends, really. So,
You want to hear an even more controversial opinion?
go on, man.
I like A Moon-Shaped Pool more than The Bends.
Okay, no, we're not having that. No.
I would give this a strong 8.
I give this a strong 8 to a light 9 because
Yeah, actually, strong 8 to light 9, I agree.
it's kind of that border level, because there are a couple of tracks that I do think could be stronger, Bones and Black Star being two of them. And as much as I do like Soul Kit probably isn't their most interesting track.
I do think even that section where I think that the album dips a bit, it's still got some great composition in it.
Great compositions. And then you've got Street Spirit as well. I want to know what you think of Street Spirit because this is like one of the most highly regarded Radiohead songs like there is. Like it's constantly getting like second to Paranoid Android and like votes and things. But the thing is, whenever I listen to it, I really like the song, but I always think that there are other Radiohead tracks that are just as depressing, but perhaps a little bit more interesting to listen
What
to.
I noticed is that I'd only ever heard the song performed live before, and I just think it's better live.
Okay.
On the album, it was, great, but a little underwhelming.
Right. Okay, I think that's fair enough. I do really like the track. A lot of people really like it, and I do understand that. But I always just think that there are.
I wouldn't take points away from it for not being as good as when they do it live, because I feel like that's the case with a lot of songs. It just so happens that I heard them in the wrong order.
Yeah, I think that's fair enough. I just want to say a little bit about how much I like Fake Plastic Trees.
Okay.
I do love that song so much. It's like, how do you even describe the song? It's about having these relationships with things that are not real, and the lyrics are just fantastic. She lives with a broken man, a cracked polystyrene man who just crumbles and burns. And then just in the final verse, she looks like the real thing. She tastes like the real thing. My fake plastic love just sends chills down my spine every single time. And York's vocal performance is nothing short of outstanding on that song. It's probably one of his best. So, I do love that song completely. So, yeah. Okay.
You know how much you love Radiohead.
Yeah.
Are you ready to hear them get butchered a little bit?
Oh, I'm not sure.
We've got a quiz of my own design. So, one of my favourite punk bands is actually the ska punk band The Arrogant Sons of Bitches, fronted by Joe's favourite punk musician.
Yes, Jeff Rosenstock.
Mr. Jeff Rosenstock. And back in 2006, they released a live album of Radiohead covers. So I'm going to... I can't wait for this. I'm going to play some, and we're going to see... I've got the timings up for which sections I'm going to play, and if Joe manages to get them within these timings, then he gets a point. And if he gets more than half of them, the forfeit is I will have to cover a song by Radiohead of his choice. If he gets less, then he will have to cover a song of Radiohead of my choice.
Yeah, my reputation of a Radiohead fan is on the line here, so... this will be fun.
So I'm going to set this up now, because I got a new iPod, which means I can finally listen to music again. Listen to the clicks.
Ooh. Mine doesn't do that.
Let's start off with this one. Are you ready?
Yeah. Sounded like 2 + 2 = 5, maybe.
Correct.
It was the 7th time. It was the 7th time that gave it away.
That's 1 point to Joe.
I was a bit unsure then. I wasn't sure if it was like a...
I'll play a little bit more of it for you.
Oh, I do love that song. It's like my 3rd favourite from Hail to the Thief, so...
It's the only one I've heard from Hail to the Thief as far as I'm aware. Right, next one.
Okay.
I did think this would be one of the harder ones.
I think I'm going to have to pass. I have no idea.
That one is Airbag.
Airbag? What?
I will play it to you from the beginning so you can hear.
Oh, yeah, well, yeah.
Yeah.
I can hear it there. I was just going to say, where are the light and fluffy textures?
I did think that if I played it from the beginning, you would probably get it.
Yeah.
Okay, so moving on to the next one.
Oh, dear. That's Paranoid Android.
It is Paranoid Android.
Oh,
See, I played you that one last week and you didn't get it.
It was a different section, though. It was
No, it was the first section. I just played you less of it. I was glad you managed to get it.
Oh, I was because it's just the way it sounded initially got me thinking something on the bends, and then my brain went to My Iron Lung, but it just then it obviously wasn't that. And
Yeah.
then okay.
Well, you will, from hearing the next bit, I'm sure you would have got it.
Noise, I'm trying to get some rest. This is intense.
Are you having fun, Joe?
I'm having a nervous breakdown here. I want to get it right. I've got a reputation to defend.
Okay.
Okay.
Next one.
That was My Iron Lung, wasn't it?
That was My Iron Lung.
I only got that from literally the 2 notes of vocal melody at the end.
I did want to stop it before those because I thought you might get it if that was the...
Okay, so I'm 3-1, aren't I?
You're 3-1, but this one I don't think you're going to get.
Right, okay.
So I'm going to give you a nice big section of it to listen to. You ready?
Frantic like a cat, tied to its stick.
Oh, it's Fitter Happier.
Damn it!
You should have stopped it sooner.
I didn't look at the timer. I was meant to stop it 2 seconds earlier. Oh, that was my bad. You wouldn't have got that otherwise. This is not looking good for me. Well, the next one is also one that I think might be a little bit difficult for you. So here we go.
Okay. Okay, this might sound weird, but it sounded quite a bit like No Surprises.
It was
with the
No
way
Surprises.
Because that has the F to the B flat minor chords, like the 3 to the 1 ratio.
The fact that you got it from that.
Well, the thing is, I've known how to play that song for so many years. It's like
here's
one of my favourites.
Here's one I think you will get.
Oh, just.
Oh my god, you got it before the...
It just those chords. I mean, it's such a unique piece of harmony that song is.
You know what, Joe? I'm going to be covering a Radiohead song. You just have to get one more.
Okay.
And there are another 6 tracks.
Okay.
Okay, this is one that I think that you will most certainly get.
Okay. Oh, exit music for a film.
It was exit music for a film.
It's another favourite of mine. Oh,
The thing is, I think I was going to play you that from the beginning, but I thought you'd get it far too quickly.
Yeah.
The song exit music, sing if you know the words. Wake.
As soon as you said wait.
Wake.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Here's another one that I think that you are probably quite likely to get.
Okay. Oh, right, yeah. Fake Plastic Trees.
It was Fake Plastic Trees.
I still haven't heard Pyramid Song yet.
I hope you've chosen a nice song for me to cover.
Well.
Okay, this is the one that's got the shortest amount of time that I'm going to play it, purely because it's such an easy one.
Right. Okay.
If you don't
You're
get...
putting all this pressure on me, Nick. Karma Police.
It was Karma Police. You've got all but one of them right. And I thought it would be a little bit difficult.
See, it's because I've actually deconstructed Radiohead's music in a video I did once I
Yeah.
know this inside out.
Okay, well, let's see if you can make it almost perfect.
Okay.
In the next
Motion picture soundtrack. I was wondering when one from Kid A would come on. In the next live, as if I wouldn't get one from probably my all-time favourite album.
Yeah. Well, that one would have been even easier if I'd just played it from the beginning.
Yeah. He sounds a bit drunk there.
Yeah. Okay, this is the hardest one besides
Okay.
Fitter Happier, which you wouldn't have gotten if I hadn't messed it up. But here we go.
Yeah. That's True Love Waits.
It is True Love Waits, which
Probably based off the original live version.
was technically released before Moonshaped Pool in
Yes.
live performances.
Ah.
Okay, well,
So I didn't get Airbag, so I'm not a 100% radio fan.
you're not
At the moment,
100%, but you've
I
got
got-
one more to go.
Oh, okay.
I wanna have control. I want a perfect body.
This is my favourite bit.
Body. I want a perfect soul.
So what is it, Joe?
I have no idea. What? Of course it's Creep.
I've got one more bit I want to play to you.
Okay, go on. That's probably how most people feel when they listen to that song.
Well, who knew that Jeff Rosenstock was the funniest man alive?
That was fun. It felt more fun after knowing that I could get them. After getting this, not being able to get the second one, I was like,
Oh, I can't believe you got you got so many of those right. Okay,
Okay.
lay it on me.
Okay, so I've got a hard pick and an easy pick, so I'll let you decide. There is a track on Hail to the Thief that you probably don't know. It's one of my favourites, Stand Up, Sit Down, which I think you could do an interesting cover of. But if you don't think you're feeling it, then I'll make you cover Nice Dream instead.
Oh, that's nice of you. Well, as I haven't listened to Stand Up, Sit Down,
Yeah.
I can't actually say whether I'd like to cover it or not.
You might decide you hate the track, but
Yeah, so we will let you know next week what my decision is.
yeah,
Because there's no way that I'm going to be able to cover a Radiohead song before this podcast is released.
probably. Especially if it's Stand Up, Sit Down. But
Yeah. Well, enough Radiohead for one podcast, if there ever could be. Let's talk about someone else who's a bit of a classic.
Yes.
Very fond in our hearts. So there's another podcast which we thought was a little bit guitar heavy.
bit guitar heavy.
Though I suppose Fall Out Boy did bring the EDM
They brought the EDM,
and
but
the
not giving
Latin and reggae.
not giving those styles
influences.
of music a good name particularly. So
So we're going all the way back in time to 1985.
it was a dark time for music. And then, but there were good things.
I'll say that actually you wrote on our classics list that you wanted to do this one to prove that not all music from the 80s is bad. I take great offence to that. The 80s had some of the best music in music, well, I suppose popular music history.
It was good for pop music. I suppose it wasn't good for prog.
No,
That's-
that's probably why you didn't like the 80s then.
I didn't like it, but I do have a fondness for Kate Bush, and yeah, we're going to be talking about Hounds of Love.
A seminal album.
I'm actually quite glad that you put this forward as one to do for this podcast because
Well, you put it forward. I just thought
Yeah.
that you'd want to talk about it.
yeah, but because I always knew I liked this album, but it was only on re-listening to it this last week that I kind of rediscovered exactly how much I really do like this album, like a lot.
I'm happy for you, man.
Thank you.
See, I always liked this album, and upon re-listening to it, it's actually gone down in my... I mean, not a lot. This album's great.
It's great.
There's so much to love about this album. And I discovered over the past week just how much there is to her music, which makes it very difficult to cover in a way that sounds satisfying.
She has such a unique vocal presence, I would say. She has that kind of quirky edge to it, but also her melodies as well. They're very sweet, but it really shows how good her range is, that she's able to just kind of float so effortlessly up and down. And I would say especially my favorite track on the album, which you already know what it is, Nick.
Running Up That Hill.
Running Up That Hill. There is a purity to this song that I just can't put my finger on. It's part of the arrangement. You've got those heartbeat drums that they do feel like they're pounding in on you. And
Just a side note, this album, or at least the first few tracks, are swooningly romantic.
oh yeah,
And
yeah, going up.
the drums opening up the album with that heartbeat rhythm really hammers it home.
It really hammers it, and it's just that odd kind of like wobbly synth that just works so well. It's quirky. It feels kind of silly in a way, but for some reason it just works with the emotional weight of the piece, and the lyrics too. Running Up That Hill,
Can I tell you a little anecdote at this point?
Go
Now that
on,
you've
yeah.
mentioned the lyrics. So, as you know, I spent a good 2 months last year making my top 100 songs that I own ranked
Yeah.
objectively in my eyes. And you were very disappointed to hear that Kate Bush's Running Up That Hill made it in at 101, so wasn't quite on the list. And at that time, the reason that I put it slightly outside of the top 100 is because I had a slight issue with the lyrics, which is that whenever I'd listened to it, I'd interpreted it as a sort of religious themed song where she was wanting to swap places with God.
No.
If I only could, I would make a deal with God and get him to swap our places. So I assumed that it was a whole thing about getting God to experience what he's created, the futility of man and the like. And I thought that was really interesting, only to discover it's about swapping the place of, I suppose, Kate Bush and her lover to show
Well,
the
Kate Bush and
differences between
anyone, really.
gender. Yeah, I suppose.
Yeah.
But actually, the more I think about it, music or just art in general is made great by how you interpret it, and the fact that I interpreted it differently to how it was originally intended, I think, is a testament to how great it is.
Yeah, I do think the intention was about swapping the places with someone of the opposite gender,
Yeah.
just to be able to get like a different point of view, just from an empathy point of view. Like when I call this song pure, I suppose what I like about it, or what resonates with me, is kind of the attitude that's taken within the song as well, because some people seem to think that this song takes like quite an accusatory tone, but I don't see that at all. I've always found it a very genuine plea to be able to understand something that you don't understand, essentially. And that's something I found very powerful within the song, especially when she sings the line, "Do you want to see just how deep the bullet lies?" There's just a weight to that. Like, you don't know what it feels like, but then again, I don't know what it feels like to be you either. And it just would help so much if we could swap those places. And it's the lyrics to the chorus that it just strikes a chord with me so much. Just every single time I listen to it, I'd be running up that road, I'd be running up that hill, I'd be running up that, I can barely say them, running up that building, that it's like that constant elevation of, you'd be running and then you'd be running up vertically into the skies, which then kind of goes into the other songs in the album.
I think it's arguably got the best vocal performance on the album as well, arguably, in relation to the lyrics at least. And the backing vocals in it are so inventive. And they fit so well. And the guitar line that comes in over the bridge, the very simple sort of staccato 2-note line, is honestly wonderful. In fact, I would probably go as far as to say that this song has got one of the best bridges of any song I've ever heard in it.
Well, it's that moment where the drums come thundering in and she sings "Let's exchange the experience." That's just so yes,
so satisfying. Okay, so we've spent 5 minutes now talking about just this one song.
Running up that, I do love that song a lot, but I do really like the rest of the album as well, because I feel like this song is a bit different to the rest of the songs on the album in a way. It has a different mood. Kind of goes up into this very, very bubbly next 2 tracks, which almost feels as though like an experience has been exchanged. Like she's now at this place where she's you know, she describes herself as being up in the, you know, you've got the big sky, cloud busting. She's up in the clouds, which then goes into the next part of the album, but we'll get into that.
Yeah.
But that stretch of songs, Hounds of Love.
Hounds of Love. No, it's just running up that hill, stretching through to cloud busting, is such an incredibly strong stretch.
It's just some fantastic
And
pop music.
that's where my problem with the album begins, which is that, as you know, but the listeners probably don't or do. I don't claim to know what the listeners know. The album is split into two halves. So at the beginning, you've got the Hounds of Love side on the original vinyl, and then you've got the second side, which is the Ninth Wave, which is this conceptual suite about someone drifting alone at sea at night.
It's about someone drowning and then being, you know, made to come back to life. Or
Well, but,
they
you know,
didn't die.
that does happen. You know, in the
Although
first bit.
I that's the generally accepted kind of thoughts of those album. I actually think it's a concept all throughout, but that's only a theory I came up with like 2 days ago. I haven't properly formed it yet.
Okay, well,
Do you want to hear it, or shall we go on to?
I'll just explain my thoughts
Yeah,
first, and then
yeah,
you can explain to me how I'm wrong with your theory. I don't like the difference between the first half of the album and the second, because I think the first, I mean, I guess I shouldn't be ungrateful for this, but I think the first 5 tracks are so incredibly strong that it just sets up the second half of the album for disappointment with this sort of more experimental conceptual piece. I mean, for a start, have you ever noticed there are no cymbals on the album?
I didn't, but I
They're
wouldn't
absolute-
say there needs
I'm not.
to be.
I'm not saying that's a bad thing. I think that's a great thing. The way she uses drums in the first 5 tracks is absolutely phenomenal to me. They become such a grounded point in the songs rhythmically, and it gives them just that bit of extra bite, I guess, which makes them stand out so much. But the drums aren't used anywhere near as well on the second half of the album, and I think after how much I was enjoying them in the first half, it just felt like they were.
Even on Waking the Witch.
See, that's my least favourite song on the album.
Oh, Nick.
So, while I don't think the second half is bad necessarily, I think I would have preferred to have had the concept stretched out a bit, maybe made it a bit more detailed and made it a separate release. Because I don't think it fits that well with the first half of the album.
Okay.
But you're going to now tell me your theory and explain to me why I'm wrong.
Well, I haven't. This isn't fully formed yet. I'm probably going to have to do like a separate video myself on it once I've been able to map it properly. But I think this album, as a complete start to finish, remaps the myth of Icarus. Because you have being trapped in the first song, being able to get let loose, and then there is complacency within those songs of going after running up that hill where you've got cloud busting and she's up in the clouds. There's this ominousness to, is that a word? Ominousness to
Ominosity. Ominous
because you've got Hounds of Love, which is like soaring up to the sky. There's these fantastic string builds, which are a bit overused in pop, but are just used wonderfully on this track here. The Big Sky is such a brilliantly uplifting track. You're definitely within the clouds here, but then the way the narrative of the drowning person is presented here, it starts with Under Ice, in which she's skating along a lake, which I think links back to Hounds of Love, where she says, you know, take our shoes off and throw them in the lake. One of my favourite moments on the album, by the way. And so it's like she's on a like a metaphorical high as she's going through this first section, and then going into the second section, it's like she's gone too far in the same way that Icarus did in the myth, and that's where that narrative comes from, and that's why I think it has that kind of weight, because this person has kind of gone too far, thinking perhaps she could do too much, like skating on thin ice. I think that's a brilliant metaphor for, you know, taking too much or going too far, and then her drowning, and then, you know, having these, you know, Jig of Life and Hello Earth, like these kind of I love both tracks, but they're kind of like these dazing visions of like what you would expect to see as someone nears the end of their life, and kind of in this portion of the album you're kind of wanting this person to survive, and then in the end we get the morning fog and she does. And I find that an interesting retelling of that narrative, the way it works throughout the album. And in this case, the person doesn't die in the end, which I find an interesting subversion of that typical story. But yeah, that's something I need to spend a bit more time on. But I think that it works throughout the album.
Wow.
Yeah, you can tell me I'm wrong if you want.
I'm not going to tell you you're wrong because, like I said, art is made great by how it's interpreted.
But
I do think you make some very good points there.
The only track I didn't really like was watching. Well, I say didn't really like. I liked it, but I'd call like a weak point on the album was Watching You Without Me, which I think drags on that narrative just that little bit too long. I think it does reuse some of the timbrel palette of Mother Stands for Comfort without really exploring it much more, I thought. But other than that, I really enjoyed the second half as well. Waking the Witch, I just really like it. You've got these people telling her to wake up in the first half of the song, but it's warm, it's inviting. They sound like familiar voices, and I think that's the key point as to why I think that track works so well in the way it does. It's telling
even the one that goes, "Wake up, child, pay attention."
Yeah, because that's like a teacher-student relationship. You might not think of it as like, you know, a loving relationship or something like that, but it's still a personal one, and it grounds the person who's drowning in this world where she has, you know, friends, relatives, teachers, people who, you know, probably do care about her. And then you've got this intense section afterwards with that comes in with the percussion and the interrupted vocals of Kate Bush saying "wake up," and I just found it. Oh, I just love it so much.
I think, well, with the first half of the song, Kate Bush inspired countless post-rock bands to do that instrumental sample films and stuff thing that they all seem to do. So, you know, props to her for that, I guess. I like the first half of the song. I think the piano is absolutely gorgeous and the samples in it all work very well. But it's at the point where it switches and becomes a lot more sinister, and it comes in with the very shattered, broken up vocals. I guess it is meant to be jarring, as some sort of a subconscious is trying to stop her from seeing these delusions that she's having or whatever, or at least that's how I interpreted it from the story. But it's just too jarring for me. I don't think that effect she uses, I mean, I know it's not meant to sound pleasant, but it's not, if it sounds painful, then it doesn't work for me.
Oh, I didn't think it sounded painful. I thought it worked perfectly, but I guess that's just a difference.
Music can make me feel uncomfortable, and that's fine. But in this case, it was unpleasant. And then the distorted vocals that come in, the low distorted vocals, I just found impossible to take seriously. And for the most part, I just think the second half of the song's a bit repetitive and dull.
Well, all I can say is I didn't find that to be the case.
Yeah. It's got some good ideas. I just don't think it's executed that well. And most of the songs in the second half, I think, are pretty decent. But after the first half of the album, it can feel a little bit like a chore to me to listen to.
Okay, it pains my heart to hear you say that, Nick.
I'm sorry, Joe. I still think this is a great album. And there's so many great ideas, and so many of them are executed well.
Yeah, I mean, I do love the second half. I love Under Ice as well. I love the mystical, fantastical atmosphere of that song and the odd, jagged string rhythms. I think works so well. I do like Jig of Life and Hello Earth, and the closing track as well. The Morning Fog is such a lovely, touching end to the album. So,
can we talk a bit more about Hounds of Love? Because I just want to talk about how much I love that track.
Yeah, sure.
Something I noticed while listening to it, I don't know if this is just me, but the sort of pattern she does with the backing vocals sort of sounds like wolf howls to me, which I think ties in very well with the Hounds of Love idea.
I think on the second iteration it does.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Once again, the lyrics are beautifully, gushingly romantic. I love this theme of being worried about entering into a loving relationship, I guess, or falling in love. And then you've got the take my shoes off and throw them in the lake and I'll be 2 steps on the water. You know, ready to take the plunge. 2 steps is progression. 1 step is, testing the water. 2 steps is fully...
Yeah, and it's the way she sings it as well. I'll
and
throw them in the lake. I love that so much.
I said running up that hill, best bridge. This is also best bridge.
We've got two best bridges.
Hold me now, it's coming for me through the trees. She's wonderful.
Yeah.
I love the first half of this album to bits. If I could give it 10 out of 10 quite easily just for the first 5 tracks.
And
Okay, let's talk about the Big Sky as well, because there's so many great ideas on that track.
I just love the rhythm.
At that point where you think, okay, she's done everything she possibly can do with this track. Oh nope, hand claps.
Yeah.
Out of nowhere.
It's such an uplifting piece of music, and you know that I'm a sucker for songs that can just get me moving and get me rhythmically engaged and just tapping along to all the different rhythms that go along in it. And it's so clear in this song. It's so upbeat. There's so many things and ideas bouncing off each other. It's just so warm.
And how does she make screaming sound so good?
Oh, she is a queen. She is one of my queens of music, Kate Bush. So
This is a great album. I mean, it's not as great as I once thought it was, sadly, but I think this album is very good.
Yeah. In terms of what I would rate it, I kind of want to work out my theory first, but for now, I'm just giving it a strong 9.
I'm going to give it a Ben's score, strong 8 to light 9, which is, still really good score.
It's still a really good score, but I just think this album is so inventive. I think the narratives work so well. The experimental pieces work perfectly for me anyway. It's just Watching You Without Me that I'm not really 100% sure on, but I still really enjoyed it. It's still a really well composed piece of music, so I really don't really have any complaints about it. And it has one of my favourite songs, Running Up That Hill, which I have a very special relationship with. So
if I redid my 100 songs list, I think Running Up That Hill would make it in now.
Yeah,
it's just I don't know if I can do that again. It took such a long time.
It'll take a toll on your mental health.
Still waiting for you to finish off your analyses of my list on your YouTube channel, but we'll get to that later.
We'll get to that. I've still got videos on video on Poppy coming soon. My essay is already at 3,000 words. So.
Well, I'm glad that you managed to take the time out of your busy schedule to do this podcast. Which we are now coming to the end of.
Coming to the close of. Yeah. I do have, well, we said earlier that there weren't many albums we wanted to talk about. I do have just a couple of shout outs that I've
got a shout out as well.
Just jotted down last minute. I really haven't listened to that much, but I did get a chance to listen to the new Above and Beyond record, which is trance music, which really doesn't float my boat a lot of the time. But I actually really enjoyed it. One of the tracks I've already shortlisted as one of my top tracks of the year. So if that's your kind of music, I'd definitely recommend that. And the new First Aid Kit record was a pleasant surprise for me.
I heard one track from that performed on, I think it was the Graham Norton show, and was a little indifferent about it, so I haven't pursued that any further. But
I think, well, listen to the final 2 tracks, because I thought those were the strongest 2.
Okay.
I've already shortlisted those, so I've done that because I've started that so early. I've actually got a lot of tracks shortlisted for my best tracks of the year, but not that many albums. So
I was going to set up a spreadsheet of various things and then didn't. I've been very busy, and my iPod broke, which is why I have fewer notes this week, because I haven't been able to listen to the music I wanted to anywhere near as much as I could.
Spreadsheets are
anyway.
necessary.
My shout out. Tiny Moving Parts, which are an emo / I guess pop punk band. I'd listened to one track from them before, which I actually quite liked, and never really listened to anything else by them. So I gave their new album a quick listen through this morning, and really liked it. I haven't had enough time to form any more opinions than that on it, but I really liked it, and I'd quite like to look up their other music.
Yeah, that's fair enough. I've only got one other one, and it was one that was released a few weeks back, but that's the new Kayak record. I just like prog rock, and I thought this one had some fire instrumentals, so...
Fire instrumentals.
Fire! You know when instrumentals are just fire?
Fire!
Fire! So, so yeah.
So what are we going to do to our ducks, Joe?
I don't want to shoot Fallout Boy.
I do.
I'm going
to make a nice pillow out of the duck feathers.
They still have a special place in my heart, though. That's the problem. I'm too much of a reasonable person these days. I'm going to warning shots. Warning shots. That's
Begrudging warning
Yeah.
shots. Well, what about Dreamwife?
Dreamwife. I mean, it wasn't that bad.
I don't really want to give them a pat on the head either.
I kind of want to kick them into gear, if you know what I mean.
Kick those ducks.
Because they probably have potential, just it wasn't really realised on this album, I don't think, so... So, yeah.
I think
Swift kick.
I think you're right. Swift kick to the ducks. Oh, we're going to get chased by...
We're going to get arrested.
RSPCA is going to show up.
Yeah, we're going to shut down our podcast.
Right, Radiohead.
I mean, they get
bread.
They get gold. They get gold
What
infused.
about the Benz particularly? What do they get?
Depends. I mean, I rank it as my fourth favourite Radiohead album, which sounds quite low down, but I still really love the album. There are 3 tracks there that, I mean, The Ben's Just and Fake Plastic Trees. I love those tracks so much. It's like, what would my life be without them? So, I still think just like the most top tier quality crusty bread that
I'm going to give
find.
them some brioche.
Ooh, schmancy.
Okay, what about the arrogant sons of bitches take on Radiohead? What do they get?
Okay.
I'm going to give them a pat on the head for making me laugh, but I hope that they never... if they had stayed together, I would hope they never do anything like that again.
I'm kind of glad that they didn't cover more songs from Kid A, because otherwise I might not have been able to forgive them.
No. I would love to hear their cover of Idiotech.
Oh, that'd be fire, that would. That'd actually work quite well, because, you know what, you've had enough music theory for today. Moving on to Kate Bush. She is one of my queens of music. I bow myself before her. So, yeah, she gets the finest bread on offer.
I'm going to give her a pano raisin.
Oh. Very good. Very nice. Very nice.
I feel like Kate Bush would probably appreciate a nice pano raisin.
Yeah, I think so too. She might throw it in the lake, though.
Yeah.
She does that to things.
And then 2 steps on the water.
She'll feed it to the ducks. The other ducks.
That's the end of the podcast for this week.
It's gone dark.
It's gone dark, yeah. We've been so engrossed in conversation, we haven't realised that it's actually gone dark outside, and now I can barely see Joe's face. Well, we hope that you enjoyed the podcast today. Time for the plugs. We are on Facebook and Twitter. We don't really use Facebook, because who does?
Yeah.
Don't really use Twitter, because neither of us know how to use it effectively.
Yeah, I hate Twitter, so... But I like you guys, so...
Yeah. You can find this podcast on YouTube, Podbean, iTunes, other podcatcher sites.
Yeah.
And shout outs to Stacey, as always. Stacey, podcast queen.
Yeah, another queen.
Yeah, she's invited us onto her special 24-hour charity podcast stream at the end of April. So
I'm
I know
nervous.
it's a little bit in advance, but mark that on your calendars and get your wallets ready to donate lots of money to good causes and listen to us.
Listen to us talk. Well, we won't spoil anything, but it'll be good. It'll be good.
Yeah,
and
it'll definitely be good.
Be good. It will be. We'll be with Stacey and Barry, so it'll have a different dynamic to it as well. So be nice. It'll be good.
Also, Joe, your YouTube account.
My YouTube account, Mr. McTidge. Poppy video coming soon. I say soon. I've been working on it for the past week, and I still haven't finished it. So
I fell in love with the man of the future.
I love Computer Boy.
I have a thing for my laptop computer. I'm not going to enjoy your videos unless you sing that.
Oh, I can't.
And that's it.
Yeah.
That's the end of the podcast. I hope you all enjoyed it. I hope you all go off and you listen to Kate Bush and Radiohead now and stay as far away from Fall Out Boy as humanly possible.
Yeah. It pains me to say it, but I kind of agree. Even though I did like Church. In fact, listen to Church and decide on whether you love it or hate it.
No, don't listen to Church.
Okay.
I've been
done.
Nick.
I've been Joe, the music critic, reasonable person now.
Signing off.
Goodbye.
F sharp. A sharp.